Hello, in this video we will take a look at Unit 3, Activity 2, and in this activity you will write your first news report. So in the Minds On, there's a little reminder that in the previous activity, in Unit 3, Activity 1, it went over the structure of a news report, the different parts of a news report. So you should already have a good idea of what a news report looks like and all the different parts that need to be included. With that said, one of the most important things that we've already talked about with a news report is that it needs to start with the most important information. So you have a lead paragraph that establishes the who, what, where, why, when, and how. So the most important details that the reader should know, and then you continue on with each of the following paragraphs providing less and less important information. So you always want to start with what's most important in a news report. And to kind of practice that, they've given you 5 paragraphs here. So if we look here, this is a paragraph on a new butterfly species that was found. And they've given you 5 paragraphs, and they're not in the correct order. They're just randomly placed on this page here. And so what you're asked to do is you're asked to number them according to most important to least important. So which one of these 5 paragraphs should be the first paragraph? Which one is the lead? Which one provides the most detailed information, or the most specific information, I should say, about the who, what, where, why, when, and how? Which paragraph should be the second? Which one is the second most important paragraph? And then third, fourth, and fifth. And when you get down to the fifth, that's when you're getting into information that, sure, it's important and you want to pass it on to the reader, but if you had to chop out a paragraph, maybe the 5th paragraph could go and the rest of the news report would still make sense. Because remember, the goal is to start with the most important and the most essential details that the reader needs to know, and then go from there. All right. With that said, we're going to look a little deeper at this paragraph here on a new butterfly species. We're going to talk about how to understand unfamiliar words. And so a lot of times when you're reading a news report, you might come across a word that you don't understand. So how can you figure that word out? Well, there's 5 different strategies that they're going to present here on how you can figure out a word's meaning when you're not sure. So I'd like you to run through these 5 different strategies. Some of them I think you're probably already going to be familiar with. Like, for example, finding the definition for a word is certainly one way to make sure that you understand its meaning. But you can also use logic. You can use kind of a logical reading of the sentence and then figuring out logically, based on the other words in the sentence, what that word could mean. You can also use contrast. So sometimes they'll tell you in a news report what something is not. Like, for example, they could say, unlike mammals. And so when you read the word unlike, that's a signal to you about what the rest of the sentence is going to be about. So you can kind of get clues or hints in a news report or in a sentence to try to figure out what a word that is unfamiliar to you might mean. So take a look at these 5 strategies closely and see, actually you're going to be asked to do a little practice here and see if you can apply them. You're going to be asked to go back to the newly discovered butterfly article. So that's this article right here, okay? And you're going to be asked to choose a word, one that is not already discussed in the examples of the strategies up here, but choose a word and see if you can use one of the 5 strategies to figure out its meaning. It's practice. You're not submitting this to me, but we want to try to get used to figuring out what words mean when they're unfamiliar to us. And by all means, you can choose more than one word and you can use more than one of the 5 strategies. Practice as much as you like. I find a lot of times on tests, we just finished doing our midterm test, that students, when they're trying to do the reading comprehension section, will ask me, what does this word mean? And I can't tell them. I can't help, because the whole purpose is to be able to read something in literacy and show that you understand it. You're not expected, though, to understand every single word. There's always words in news articles or narratives that you're not going to understand. So if you have strategies in the back of your mind that you can use to try to figure out what those words mean, that could be very helpful, not just on a test, but when you read anything. Okay? So again, take a look at the 5 strategies and see if you can apply them. With that said, something else that we're really going to have to know well in this unit is how to work with quotations. When you write news reports, you have to include quotations from witnesses or from experts, people that know the event that you're writing about, that people that were there or that have a strong opinion about the event you're writing about, and so you have to include their quotations or their own opinions. And so what you're going to do here is you're going to be given 3 different methods on how to write quotations in a news report. So you can introduce a quotation with a complete sentence and a colon. And so, for example, the scientists warned the public about the dangers of melting permafrost, colon, and then you can put a quotation from someone, from presumably a scientist here, that states a quotation that backs up what you just said. You can use an introductory or explanatory phrase, but not a complete sentence, separated from the quotation with a comma. This is probably the most common way to use quotations, and this is the way that I usually use quotations when I put them into a news report or into a narrative. And so you'd have the scientist said, comma, and then you'd have the quote from the scientist. A third way that you can use is you can make the quotation a part of your own sentence without any punctuation between your words and the words you were quoting. So you could say, the scientist warned the public that melting permafrost could release massive amounts. Notice how there's no punctuation here? The writer has used their own words, but found a way to creatively lead right into the quotation that they want to provide from the scientist. All 3 of these methods are fine. Whichever one you're more comfortable using is fine, but you're going to have to include quotations in the news reports that you write in this unit. So it's important that you understand how to use at least one of these methods well. With that said, that leads us to our consolidation, and it leads us to our first news report assignment. And so it says, now it's your turn to be the reporter. You will be given a picture, a headline, and some facts. You will have to combine these details to write a rough draft of a news report. So I've given you a headline, New Park in West Windsor. So that's our headline. I've given you a picture, okay? And then I've given you some facts. So the who, what, where, when, why, and how, right? So what your job is going to be is to take this headline, this picture, and these facts and turn it into a full news report. Okay, so if we go further down here, there'll be more explanation. It says brainstorm additional details you will include in your news report. So of course, this is not going to fill a whole news report here. You're going to have to expand on these facts. So you're going to have to include additional details. For the purpose of this activity, you have been given facts. So these facts right here, but you will have to invent some additional facts in order to write a complete news report. So, for example, you can invent details about the parks and who specifically attended the park's opening ceremony. So you can see here that there's a playground in the park, but you can feel free to describe the park in any way you like. You can add any details. What is in this park that people can use? What is the attractions in this park? You're free to add and make up whatever you like. It says here local residents and city officials attended the opening. Well, who attended? Did the mayor come? So give some details, right? Provide more details that expand on these facts, okay? And again, the trick is you're going to be inventing your own facts, so to speak. You're not researching a new park online. You're free to create this news report on your own. Just base them on the facts, the photo, and the headline that I've given you, okay? If we continue on here, it says you will need to include the following criteria in your rough draft. So you're going to need a headline. You're going to need a photo. I've already given you the headline and the photo. You can copy and paste them right into your news report. You're going to have to provide a caption below the photo, so describing the photo. You're going to have to give a byline, so your name. You're going to have to give a date line. So I would use Tuesday, September 7th, 2021. That's the day after the park opened. So presumably that's the date that someone would have written a news report on this park. You're going to have a lead paragraph where you summarize the 5 W's and H, hopefully in approximately 2 sentences. You don't want a long lead paragraph. You don't want any of your paragraphs in a news report to be long. They should be short, quick paragraphs that establish factual detail. You should write in third person, so there's no reason for using the word I unless you're writing it in a quotation, unless someone is saying that out loud and you're using that as a quote. You're going to include facts and provide additional information about the 5 W's and H. So after you've established your 5 W's and H in your lead paragraph, you're going to continue to explain them in your second and third and fourth paragraphs. You're going to have at least 2 quotations from people related to the event. So they could be witnesses, they could be city officials, they could be anyone that is relevant that is commenting on the new park. You're going to make sure that your paragraphs are short. They can even be one sentence. You can have really short paragraphs at a news report that are sometimes only one sentence. And you need to organize your paragraphs from the most important information to the least important information, as we've already talked about. And then you'll submit your rough draft, as always, to the Dropbox here, and then I will give you feedback. You will write a second news report draft in the next activity, in Unit 3, Activity 3, and then you'll choose one of your 2 news report drafts, and you'll fix it up, and you'll submit it as your polished news report in Unit 3, Activity 4. If you have any questions, especially about this news report assignment, please let me know.